let's talk cuisines because food is, of course, when we talk about pairing, there's so much conversation about what pairs well with what and which cuisines don't. Now that you've traveled, that you're in India and you've traveled to Japan, you say, what do you think about Asian cuisines with your wines?
What I'd say, and I'll sort of give you my background, and when I was first hired to do this job, I was very young. I just gotten out of cooking school, and to be successful in my job is to highlight these wines. That's my number one job. I can be a great chef, but if the cooking I'm doing does not highlight the wines, then I'm missing the point somewhere. And so very early in my job, I looked to cuisines where wine is a part of that culture, and they sort of grew up together. So, in Northern California, Italian cooking and French cooking, Mediterranean cooking is very popular. We have a Mediterranean climate, and so it was natural to sort of gravitate to those cuisines. But the other interesting thing about California is we have a lot of immigrants, and we have people from Asia. There's a lot of Indians in the Bay Area in Northern California. There's people from Vietnam and China, and they've brought their foods with them and their culture, and sort of that gets incorporated into the cooking of California. It makes it very interesting. And so the cooking that I may have done early on was very much Italian, French, and still is. I say that's the base of the cooking I do. But as I've traveled and as I've tried foods from different parts of the world, that sort of gets incorporated into the cooking I do. I would also say that as I've traveled and we've promoted our wines in Asia, and again, it's maybe Indian cuisine didn't develop with wine, and it's more of a current occurrence. And the same thing, last year I was in Korea, and that's again another culture that wine didn't develop the same way that the cuisine did. But it's interesting to see young chefs, modern chefs, combine their native culture and cuisine with Western techniques to create something that I think does marry well with our wines and with wine in general. And so it might not be traditional, but there's ingredients and there's techniques that are incorporated. I had a wonderful meal when I was in Korea. A very talented chef that went to the school in the United States and worked in some really nice restaurants in New York City, and he came back to Seoul and had a beautiful restaurant, and his cooking was really, really interesting, and he was very much celebrating the food of Korea, and it was all went really well with wine.
So you do feel Indian cuisine, if tweaked or perhaps spices adjusted, can actually pair?
Yes, and so with Indian cuisine, spices are a big part of it, and there might be dishes that I would be hesitant to pair with our wines, but I wouldn't say that Indian cuisine and wine aren't compatible. I think it's more, some dishes are probably better than others. I had dinner in the restaurant last night, and both the dishes I thought could have very easily been enjoyed with a glass of our wine. I think it's more when there's a lot of chilies. I don't think it's the spices so much as it's the chilies. And you could say that about closer to my home is Mexico. And so, and that is definitely a part of the building block of Mexican cooking is the chilies, and that also can clash. But if you tone them down, or certain dishes are probably more compatible. Same thing with Mexican cooking.
So let's ask, there's a very wide range of cake bread wines, some of which are here. Which is your favorite dish and pairing?
The wine that's closest to me has a special place in my heart. Sauvignon Blanc is a wine that I enjoy drinking through a meal, but it has really bright acidity. And so it's very bright and fresh and vibrant, and it sort of perks your taste buds up, and I think that's great to start a meal, and depending upon dish, you can very easily drink it throughout. And it's one of the wines that my wife, when she first moved to Napa Valley, that someone poured for her, that she really had sort of that aha moment and really fell in love with. And then when she met me and realized that I worked at Cake Bread Cellars, she at least had an interest because of our Sauvignon Blanc. So
That's a lovely
I had to take it from
story,
there.
yeah.
But
So, for a young wine drinker, because wine is still growing in India,
Yes.
or somebody who's just gone to a restaurant, a very simple pairing tip that you'd offer.
Uh, Trial and error, you know, and that's part of it. And I think as you make wine a part of your everyday life, you learn what you like and what you don't like. Just as you're cooking, if you want to become an accomplished cook, you need to do it. You can't just do it for special occasions. And so as you drink wine more often, you sort of gravitate to what you like and what you don't like, because everybody's a little bit different. One of the easiest wine food pairing mantras or rules would be to pair the intensity of the dish with the intensity of the wine. So if you don't know a lot about wine, that's not going to help you very much, but hopefully you have somebody who can steer you in the right direction. But a very light wine goes with a very light dish. A wine that has a lot of complexity and body to it is going to stand up to a dish that has more complexity and body to it. So that would be a number one rule, I think, as a starting point.
Well, thank you, Brian. We're really looking forward to the dinner tonight.
Oh.
Thanks so much.
Happy to be here. Thank you.